1900s, railroad accidents were very common.
There were 98 people known killed. There were 14 more that are presumed dead.
I was surprised this tragedy had happened to somebody in our family.
A couple miles north of Pueblo, endless traffic thrums past a dusty arroyo, past the scene of one of the deadliest disasters in Colorado's 150 years, a place where today only graffiti marks the spot. The story begins at Denver's Union Station in the late afternoon of August 7, 1904. The Denver and Rio Grande Western's Train 11, the Kansas City-St. Louis Express, chugged out at 5 o'clock, a few hundred people on board. It headed south, through stations in Littleton and Castle Rock, in Monument and Colorado Springs. As night fell, Pueblo's stately depot and the next leg of a journey to St. Louis and the World's Fair lay 8 miles ahead. At a place called Eden, Train 11 approached a bridge over an arroyo. Drizzle fell, but engineer Henry Hinman had no idea it was pouring rain in the hills to the west, no idea a torrent was rushing down the gulch. Just as the engine started to cross the bridge, a wall of water tore and splintered its timber pilings, plunging the locomotive, baggage car, coach, and chair car into the roiling waters, tumbling them downstream. In a matter of moments, as many as 130 people were dead or dying.
This accident was an accident of nature.
Larry Green is a railroad historian.
This accident could have been a lot worse if it hadn't been for the fact that the train was equipped with automatic air brakes.
The aftermath was heartrending. Cousins, mothers and daughters, a couple planning their wedding. So many lives, so much heartache. Tony Fisher survived the wreck, swimming to safety.
He had gone through barbed wire, and so he was kind of torn up with that.
Weeks later, Tony Fisher died of tetanus, a story particularly poignant to Judy McGinnis at the Pueblo County Historical Society.
The railroad didn't count him as a fatality because he didn't die in the accident. There's so many sad stories.
Among the saddest was the magnitude of tragedy visited upon the family living in a Victorian cottage in North Denver, the home of Edward and Catherine Gartland and their 5 children. Catherine and 4 of those kids boarded Train 11, heading to the World's Fair and then, according to news accounts, to Vermont. Edward and their oldest son, Frank, 14, stayed behind, planning to join them the following week.
One minute you're saying goodbye to people at the train station.
Pat Gartland is one of Frank Gartland's grandchildren.
The next morning, wake up and be greeted with that news that your whole family is gone.
As a boy, he knew his grandfather as a quiet man who loved baseball, especially his Yankees, and once welcomed Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth as they barnstormed their way through Denver.
He played Santa Claus, put on a fake beard, and he'd be Santa Claus at Christmas time. I remember that.
They never talked about the accident. Pat Gartland didn't even learn of it until after his grandfather's death.
It's just kind of had to be a shattering experience. Just an amazing thing. That many members of your family gone in a flash.
The Gartland family's loss is memorialized in Wheat Ridge's Mount Olivet Catholic Cemetery, with markers for Kate Gartland, Edward Jr., 12, Walter, 10, Lillian, 6, and Ralph, 2. It's remembered in the archives of the Pueblo Historical Society and by volunteers like Judy McGinnis and Larry Green.
And we wanted to make sure that we recognized the people that were unidentified and buried here.
And it's marked in Pueblo's Roselawn Cemetery, where it's believed some unidentified victims are buried in unmarked graves. But at the spot where it happened, there is nothing but sandy soil and scrub brush, and the endless drone of interstate traffic.
Oh my goodness, Kevin Vaughn joining us now. Kevin, thank you. I was unaware, I'll admit, of the Eden train crash. What a tragedy. Before I pick your brain, there is some controversy on how many people actually died.
Yeah, Sam, the official death toll varies between 96 and 98, depending on which source you believe. Most people agree there are another 14 people who were on the train, were never found, never accounted for. And a number of researchers think there were another 20 to 25 people that probably got on the train between Denver and where the
Right.
accident happened that were not not accounted for anywhere and were never accounted for after the accident. So that would put the death toll as close, close to 140 potentially.
Unbelievable. A part of our history, unfortunately, but it is part of our history. This happened so long ago. How did you even begin to find information, to learn more about this story?
Well, I started with old newspaper articles. I do a fair amount of family genealogy on my own family, and so I started looking for descendants of people who are on the train. Obviously, everybody that was involved in this has passed away a long time ago. And I was particularly struck by the Gartland family, a mother and 4 children, the one child surviving, to find a descendant of Frank, the survivor, and we found his grandson, Pat, and a couple of other grandchildren in the process. And so it was through that and looking at old newspapers, talking to the people at the Historical Society, railroad experts, and that sort of thing. But there's only one good quality photograph from the scene. Most of the rest of it we had to take from newspapers, and they're poor quality copies. So there were things we didn't know. We were able to build. Jeff Sawtelle built that animation based on what we knew and the type of cars the train was pulling and all the accounts of what happened.
No, you were able to convey the emotion. You saw, I was teary-eyed watching it because it is quite the tragedy. What was the aftermath before I let you go? I'm assuming there were a number of lawsuits?
There were some lawsuits, some of them drug on for literally for decades, but most people, according to all of the news stories at the time, most people involved in it accepted the railroad's offer of $1,000.
Wow.
And went on with their lives.
Unbelievable. Kevin Vaughn, I'm so appreciative that you brought this story to light. Well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.